We've sailed to Alaska 7 times over the past decade, and here's the truth. A lot of what people believe about Alaska cruising just isn't accurate. So we put together this video to help you dispel fact from fiction, and stick around as we reveal the one Alaska cruise myth it actually took us several trips to realize isn't true to help you stay one step ahead of everyone else on board. Welcome aboard, I'm Don B from Eat Sleep Cruise, and let us start with one of the biggest debates in Alaska cruising, the balcony debate. It's one of the most hotly contested topics in all of cruising, but especially during Alaska cruise planning. And here's our honest take. A balcony is wonderful in Alaska, and we always recommend one if your budget allows. The ability to step outside at 6 a.m. in your pajamas when the captain announces a whale sighting, or just to admire the natural landscape, is genuinely valuable. Private glacier viewing with some breakfast in bed can't be matched either. But is a balcony really required? No. The real tip is to find the right cruise ship that has plenty of public viewing spaces, both outdoor and indoor areas, for you to view the landscapes from. You'll likely spend the majority of your scenic cruising time on the open decks or indoor observation lounges, just in case you don't want to brave the elements. If the price difference between an interior cabin and a balcony is a difference between going to Alaska and staying home, just book the inside stateroom. You will not be disappointed. Summer, specifically late June through mid-August, is the most popular time to cruise to Alaska. It offers the warmest temperatures, the longest days, and the most active wildlife to cruise there. So many believe that summer is the best time to cruise to Alaska, but the most popular isn't always the best. Shoulder season, sailings in May and September, offer real advantages that Alaska cruisers need to know. May brings lower prices, fewer crowds, and early season energy to the destination. September delivers stunning fall foliage, and again, lower prices and thinner crowds. If your schedule is flexible, don't automatically assume that you should book your Alaska cruise in July or August. It really depends what you want out of your trip. A May or September sailing might actually deliver a better overall experience at a lower cost. And honestly, we've sailed to Alaska during all months, and we prefer shoulder season sailings, specifically for the lower crowd levels. Sticker shock is real when you start pricing out Alaska cruises, especially compared to a 7-day Caribbean sailing. But look at the full picture. Alaska's remote, getting there independently with flights to Anchorage or Fairbanks, transportation, lodging in remote areas, and meals adds up fast. Once you realize this, an Alaska cruise quickly becomes the cheaper and easier option. A cruise includes your transportation between ports, accommodations, most meals, and access to some of the most spectacular scenery in Southeast Alaska. Alaska cruises don't have to break the bank. Sailing during shoulder season in an inside cabin is considerably cheaper than sailing in July in a balcony cabin. You can easily save $1,000 or more per person, and you'll have a very similar cruise experience. If you approach an Alaska cruise the way you approach a Caribbean sailing, sleeping in, pool days, late nights dancing and drinking, you'll miss what makes Alaska cruising truly spectacular. Alaska cruises have a different rhythm. Set an alarm for early scenic cruising and glacier viewing, then maybe take a nap. You linger on deck watching wildlife instead of enjoying poolside cocktails. The quiet of the inside passage becomes the norm instead of loud deck parties. You typically retire early, usually after dinner and a show or a couple of cocktails. The destination is the entertainment. When you understand the difference, an Alaska cruise goes from being just another cruise to one of the most memorable travel experiences of your life. Thinking that all Alaska cruises are the same can lead to some serious disappointment. Alaska cruises vary greatly, not just in the ships that sail the region and the ports they visit, but in the type of glacier access they offer, the route they sail, and the overall experience they deliver. A round-trip Seattle sailing is a very different trip than a one-way Gulf of Alaska itinerary from Vancouver to Whittier. A ship that sails into Glacier Bay National Park offers something genuinely different from one that visits Hubbard Glacier or Endicott Arm and the Dawes Glacier. Some itineraries spend full days in port, while others only have 4 to 6 hour stops. The ships themselves vary just as much, from familiar brands carrying 3,000 passengers to intimate small ship expedition vessels. Some cruise lines like Princess and Holland America have heavily invested in Alaska-specific programming. This includes everything from onboard naturalists and expert lecturers to locally sourced food and beverages. Before you book, understand exactly what itinerary you're getting, which glaciers you'll visit, and what your cruise line, and more specifically the ship you're looking at, brings to the Alaska experience. So even if you cruised before, planning an Alaska cruise takes more than just picking a ship with the newest hardware. That's why we always recommend that you book the certified travel advisor. Now, Heidi and I are not travel advisors. That's why we partner with MEI Travel. We love working with our personal cruise consultant, Blair, who navigates all the options to find the ideal cruise line, ship, and itinerary, and always makes sure we get the best available price and take advantage of any promotions or inclusions. So scan the QR code on screen right now or click our exclusive link down in the description to get your free, no obligation quote. Alaska is massive, and considering the breadth of highlights that you get in an Alaska cruise, including multiple locations, glacier access, wildlife viewing, comfortable accommodations, and meals, a cruise is genuinely hard to beat, especially since some places in Alaska aren't accessible by roads. Could you spend 2 weeks driving through Alaska independently and go more interior? Sure, but you'd also be navigating complex logistics, driving between remote destinations, and spending significantly more money. A cruise visits destinations like Glacier Bay National Park, Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, and the Inside Passage in a single trip with zero packing and unpacking between destinations. For first-time visitors especially, a cruise is not just a good way to see Alaska, it's the best way to get a comprehensive introduction to the state. If you're a returning visitor, cruise lines also offer cruise tours, which combine a cruise with a land portion that often visits Denali National Park. With a cruise tour, you'll see more of the state and still have all the travel logistics handled for you. Of course, you're traveling to Alaska to see the wildlife, but those sightings unfortunately are not guaranteed. It's true that Alaska is one of the best places in the world to see humpback whales, orcas, brown and black bears, bald eagles, sea otters, stellar sea lions, and more. And over our 7 trips, we've seen most of these creatures, but seeing these animals during your one Alaska cruise isn't a sure bet. What we can tell you is that your odds are significantly better than most other cruise destinations, and there are a few things you can do to improve them. Spend time on deck during scenic cruising, especially in the early mornings when seas are calmer and wildlife is more active. Bring binoculars to scout the shorelines. Listen to announcements from the onboard naturalist or your captain. And of course, you can also book shore excursions like whale watching or bear viewing tours. Though honestly, some of the best wildlife moments on an Alaska cruise often happen not on a paid excursion, but at the rail of the ship at 7 a.m. with a cup of coffee in hand. Now, we hate to tell you this, but if seeing the Northern Lights is a primary reason you're booking an Alaska cruise, don't do it. Instead, choose a sailing to Norway or Iceland. Alaska cruises operate during the summer months, when there are long hours of daylight. The Northern Lights require darkness, and there simply isn't enough of it during peak season to produce visible aurora displays. The best shot at seeing the Northern Lights in Alaska is during a late September sailing, when darkness returns to the region. Even then, sightings on a cruise are possible, but far from reliable. If the Northern Lights are on the top of your Alaska bucket list, a cruise tour that ventures up to Fairbanks is your best bet. And even then, there's no guarantee. Yes, Alaska is the last frontier, and yes, it can be chilly, especially in the mornings and evenings. But too cold to enjoy is simply not an accurate description of Alaska during the cruise season. Most cruisers are pleasantly surprised about how comfortable the temperatures actually are. You will experience crisp, fresh air in the mornings, but that makes glacier viewing from the bow of the ship feel exhilarating rather than miserable. But it will usually warm up to the 50s or even the 60s by midday. Heck, we've even had 70-degree weather peak July, where fellow cruisers were using the outdoor pools and hot tubs. Of course, everyone has a different cold tolerance, but generally, if you dress appropriately, the weather becomes part of the experience instead of an obstacle. Even on cool or foggy days, Alaska has dramatic beauty that many cruisers end up preferring to a hot, sunny Caribbean afternoon. Given the misconception about weather, one of the most common Alaska cruise packing mistakes we see is that first-time Alaska cruisers show up with bulky ski jackets, several heavy wool sweaters, and ski boots that end up remaining in their luggage the entire trip. The reality is that Alaska in the summer is nowhere near as cold as New England in the winter, especially this year. Temperatures in the main cruise season, May through September, typically range from the low mid-50s to the mid-60s Fahrenheit, with warm afternoons that can push into the 70s in some ports. Yes, it will likely be chilly during those early mornings, but it warms up nicely just in time to go ashore. The biggest challenge isn't the cold actually, it's the variability in temperature. You can experience a 25 to 30 degree temperature swing in a single day, from a crisp 40 degree Fahrenheit morning at glacier viewing to a pleasant 65 degree afternoon in port. The solution is simple. Pack layers, a moisture wicking base layer, a mid layer, and a packable waterproof outer shell will serve you better than any heavy coat. While wildlife is not guaranteed on your Alaska cruise, one thing definitely is. It will rain. We're not going to pretend otherwise, especially if Ketchikan is on your itinerary, as that port alone receives over 150 inches of rain annually. But rain ruining an Alaska cruise is almost entirely a mindset issue. With quality waterproof jacket, waterproof shoes, and the right attitude, a rainy day in Alaska is still a spectacular day. Plus, the rain usually doesn't last a whole day, and it's often only light showers. So pack your rain gear and embrace the adventure. Now, if you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed, we completely understand. That's why we want to make you a special offer. We want to send you a completely free copy of our Ultimate Cruise Planning Guide, brand new for 2026, filled with everything we wish we knew before our first trip. It also includes a printable packing list, budget worksheet, and cruise planning checklist to ensure you stay one step ahead of everyone else on board. So scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description and we'll send it straight to your inbox. It is completely free and it could save you hundreds on your next cruise and weeks of trying to figure it all out on your own. Now, technically, on a closed loop cruise, one that departs from and returns to the same US port, US citizens can sail with a birth certificate and government issued photo ID instead of a passport. So it is true that you don't necessarily need a passport. But practically speaking, we always recommend having a passport for an Alaska cruise. If a medical emergency requires you to fly home from a Canadian port, you need a passport. If you plan to take any excursions that cross the Canadian border by land, like the very popular White Pass Railway, you'll need a passport as well. This is not a myth worth testing, just get the passport. It is absolutely true that you cannot treat Alaska shore excursions like Caribbean ones, where you can often decide what to do the morning you arrive. The most popular Alaska excursions like helicopter glacier landings, whale watching, bear viewing tours, and dog sledding all book up months in advance. If there are bucket list experiences on your Alaska itinerary, you need to secure those early. But it's not essential that you book an excursion in every single port. Some ports are perfect for independent exploration. Ketchikan's Creek Street, Juneau's downtown, and Skagway's historic district are all walkable and easy to explore without a structured tour. We recommend you identify your must-do experiences and book those immediately. Then, alternate these high-priced activities with more budget-friendly ones. Whether it's do-it-yourself options or wallet-friendly walking and sightseeing tours, you can still have a good time without spending a fortune on shore excursions. In fact, on our last Alaska cruise, we were able to book one of the most desired shore excursions and still save money using Shore Excursions Group. In fact, you can save up to 40% off advertised cruise line shore excursions by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking our exclusive link down in the description. Along with saving money, their return to ship guarantee means you can enjoy the tour with peace of mind, knowing you will be back on board before your ship sets sail. We understand that Alaska cruises have historically skewed toward a more mature demographic, and that cruise lines like Holland America and Princess have reputations for attracting seasoned travelers. But the demographic is far more mixed than the stereotype suggests. In fact, Alaska is one of the fastest growing cruise destinations among younger travelers. This is driven largely by the increased number of adventure-focused excursions available. Think glacier treks, whitewater rafting, kayaking, ziplining, and more. Whether you're 35 or 75, you'll have a memorable time in Alaska. We're in our 40s and have cruised to Alaska with Celebrity Cruises, Norwegian Cruise Line, Princess Cruises, and Holland America Line, and every single trip has been unforgettable. Similarly, Alaska cruises aren't just for adults. Honestly, Alaska might be one of the most underrated family cruise destinations out there. Think about your child's excitement when they spot a humpback whale, watch a massive chunk of glacier calve into the water with a thunderous crash, pan for gold like a real Klondike prospector, or meet sled dogs before their musher explains what life on the Iditarod Trail is actually like. These experiences captivate kids in ways that beach destinations often don't. This sense of exploration as a family is truly unique. Cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, Norwegian Cruise Line, and Disney Cruise Line have made the destination very family accessible, combining the destination's natural wonders with their signature onboard family programming. From exciting tours ashore to age-appropriate activities and hands-on experiences on board the ship, kids of all ages will find plenty to love. Alaska has a reputation as a destination for hikers, kayakers, and adventure seekers. While those experiences absolutely exist, they're only one slice of what an Alaska cruise offers. For every helicopter glacier landing or hiking adventure, there's a scenic narrated catamaran tour through misty fjords, whereas foodies can enjoy a dream crab feast or salmon bake. For every whitewater rafting or ziplining excursion, there's a relaxed afternoon of exploring a charming port town or watching Native Alaskan cultural performances. The scenery itself is extraordinary without any physical effort required. Alaska cruises are accessible to travelers of all fitness levels and interests. Believe me, neither Heidi nor I are outdoorsy people, and we still love Alaska cruises. While admiring the Alaska scenery does take up a good portion of your time and attention, the cruise ships themselves are more than just floating hotels. Alaska cruises still offer activities like trivia, game shows, and nightly theater entertainment. Most ships sailing in the region still have casinos, pools, some indoors, a spa, and kids clubs. However, the big draw is that some of the more Alaska-focused cruise lines enhance the onboard experience even further. Lines like Holland America and Princess offer naturalist-led programming, ranger talks in Glacier Bay, and enrichment lectures on Alaskan wildlife and culture. Princess Cruises even features puppies in the piazza during visits to Skagway. Some cruise lines also offer signature Alaska cocktails or featured main dining room dishes. Yes, the vibe of an Alaska cruise is different from a Caribbean one, but cruisers will still find many familiar favorites to enjoy between ports of call, along with educational opportunities. Alaska cruises have a reputation for being the opposite of a relaxing tropical getaway. Early morning alarms for glacier viewing, and port days packed with excursions. And it can be that way if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to. Relaxation options are always available if you want them. Sea days in the Inside Passage are among the most peaceful at-sea experiences. They're also the perfect time to enjoy a hot tub with scenic views, take a dip in the solarium pool, read a good book in the observation lounge, or rejuvenate in the spa's thermal suite. What could be better than lying in a heated stone lounger while admiring panoramic vistas as you sail through fjords? The Inside Passage, which is the primary route for round-trip Alaska cruises, has some of the calmest waters. It winds through protected channels, fjords, and waterways flanked by islands and coastline, meaning you're rarely on open ocean. For many sailings, particularly round-trip from Seattle or Vancouver, rough water is not a huge concern. However, some itineraries do cross the Gulf of Alaska, which can be rougher. These tend to be the one-way northbound or southbound routes from Seward or Whittier, Alaska. If you're prone to seasickness, choose an Inside Passage itinerary, book a midship cabin on a lower deck, and bring your preferred motion sickness remedy as a precaution. But don't let the chance of seasickness talk you out of an Alaska cruise. The vast majority of passengers have no issues. And as promised, here's the one Alaska cruise myth it actually took us several trips to realize isn't true. We completely understand that Alaska is a bucket list item for many, the kind of trip you do once and check it off your list and then move on. But once you actually visit, you'll realize why this simply isn't true. After a visit in July, you'll start to wonder what it looks like in May. Or you'll wonder what a different itinerary with the Hubbard Glacier looks like instead of sailing Glacier Bay. Or after your first Alaska cruise, you might consider a cruise tour, combining a sailing with a land journey through Denali and Fairbanks. Alaska is one of those destinations that's different on every visit. The wildlife is different. The weather is definitely different. And the shore excursion options seem endless. We've sailed to Alaska 7 times, and we'll be returning for our 8th visit this season. And once you visit, you'll realize it's far more of a repeat destination than most first-timers expect. So now we need to find you the perfect Alaska cruise ship and itinerary. So click or tap on our brand new Best Alaska Cruises for 2026 video right here on YouTube. In that video, we break down all the options from the major cruise lines. So whether you're a family, couple, or whatever your travel party looks like, we detail the best Alaska cruise for you. That way, your trip way up north is smooth sailing.